Hello, faithful podcast viewers and listeners. Do you like scary movies?
Hell yeah, I like scary movies.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
Welcome back, faithful fans, to the Silver Screen podcast. This is basically how we are going to be going forward for the next few months. We're not in a full series, but I've decided that I'm going to do kind of odd sort of podcast reviews for films that might be relevant, and you'll probably know that there's a new Scream movie coming out. So if you've been on my social media, you will know. You'll know that we decided that to coincide with that, I would give a review of the original 1996 Wes Craven's Scream. Written by
I thought
Kevin
it was called Stab. I thought it was called Stab.
Stab. No, that didn't show up until the sequel.
Oh, actually, yeah, it didn't. You're right. I just literally watched it as well. It didn't.
Indeed. It was almost called Scary Movie, but they changed it last minute, and then that became the comedy franchise title instead. But
yeah,
we'll get into that. But so as I say, if you've seen the social medias and stuff, you'll know we're reviewing Scream. But you know by now that I don't just sit here and ramble by myself. I'm always joined by a guest who you will have heard in that intro. But why don't you introduce yourself officially before we get into it?
So my name's Conor. I'm here on behalf of Pasty Sheep. You may know me, and George White, on the YouTube scene. You know, we cover films, TVs, kind of like this lovely gentleman does. And like Michael says, relevancy is key. We're in the new year, 2022, and you know, there's no other film really to talk about in dry January other than Scream. Because the new one's out, so...
Well, they moved Morbius, not that was going to necessarily be an Oscar winner or anything. But...
well, let's be honest, no.
But yeah, the next big film after Scream, I think, is The Batman in March, if it keeps to its dates. So, as I said, we are discussing the movie Scream, written by Kevin Williamson, who is probably most famous, ironically, as the creator of Dawson's Creek, which I always find amusing.
Oh, wow. Wait, what? Really?
You can kind of tell by the way the teenagers kind of talk in this movie and stuff, because it's got that sort of teen pop culture dialogue kind of thing. So when you know that, you're like, oh, crap, I can kind of see what you mean now. Yeah,
Dawson's Creek. Jesus Christ.
And obviously, you know, it's directed by horror icon and maestro Wes Craven, who, you know, Hills Have Eyes, Nightmare on Elm Street, Swamp Thing.
You know? Yeah, Swamp Thing. Yeah. You said all the big ones. Yeah, you have said all the big ones.
Yeah, pretty much. He did a werewolf movie around this time, but it wasn't very good, I'm told. Never saw it. So, without any further ado, then I'll start by asking you what your kind of familiarity is with Scream. When was the first time you saw it, if you can remember, and how did you decide to watch it?
How did I decide to watch it? Well, it was a long, quiet Saturday night, and it was kind of like, well, I'm in the mood for a new movie. What on earth do I need to watch? And it was a good old friend called Amazon Prime, and it was nothing I had to rent, but it was included with Prime maybe about a year ago during lockdown. I remember that.
Oh, it's
and
not
it was
now.
Kind of like, sod it. I was like, sod it. Let's watch it.
Oh, fair enough. Whereas I, being a bit older than you, without saying anything more than that, I kind of grew up with this. We were talking before we started recording, and you said that, you've kind of grown up with this, and that's true. I would have been about 14 or 15 in 1996. I do know that I definitely didn't see this in the cinema.
I'd be blooming surprised if you did. I'd be blooming surprised.
No, weirdly enough, the only Scream I've ever seen in the cinema was Scream 3. Out of all of the four.
Oh, whoa. Oh, that was I bet that was a fun time. Way over time.
By that point, me and my friend were so heavily into the kind of franchise and everything that it kind of was, because it was almost like a convention. We went with the full costume and mask and everything, and we're just like, Scream, young and impressionable, you know. But but no, I do remember watching Scream 1 and 2 on either video or DVD after I think Scream 2 had even been out, so it was probably around 98 or so. But like I said, having grown up with it, I've seen it multiple times. I've owned it on DVD. I recently got the first 3 films on a sort of trilogy Blu-ray because I thought, time to upgrade. Why not? And it was like £9 or something. It wasn't expensive.
Jeez.
And I do already have Scream 4 on Blu-ray because I actually quite enjoyed that one.
Funny enough, I've got the 4K of the first, which is what I ended up watching tonight. And then, funny enough, I've just ordered the Blu-ray trilogy because, again, these films are good. Like, all right, Scream 3, but they're all worth watching. They're all worth owning, I personally think.
Yeah, I'll get into that later because I have asked kind of around social media what our opinions of the overall
franchise. What the consensus,
yeah. Have a favourite. I think it's pretty obvious, but we'll go into it at the end anyway. So it's one of those films that that's always been omnipresent ever since I first saw it, because I remember studying it in sixth form when I was there for kind of media studies class and stuff. So I've done full-on analysis of this already, which is how I know random stories and stuff.
Quite a lot, yeah.
And, little tricks and things that we were taught by our teacher at the time to look out for. So, right. So if there's nothing else, then I may as well just get started and go straight into the movie.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Yeah, crack on.
Awesome. So the movie just starts straight out the gate with the word Scream and the iconic opening scene, obviously, with Drew Barrymore as Casey. Straight away, I noticed a lot of the kind of tricks of the trade that Wes Craven employs here for horror movies. There's a lot of Dutch angles that are designed to kind of leave you unsettled because nothing's like on a level, so you're always kind of askew, which I noticed a lot throughout the movie, but that's definitely how it opens. And
I was going to say yes. Like you say, uncomfortable. Nothing's at a steady angle. It is kind of all over the place and janky, and from behind, like face on. Yeah, it is all very good, sharp angles. Like if it was really poorly done, you could have seen Ghostface walking around. You could have seen him like enter the room, but like no, you can't see no cameramen. You can't see nothing like leak. Yeah. Like it is genuinely craftably done, like amazingly.
I agree, and it gives you the chance that the only time you kind of see a figure sort of rushing by in the robes and stuff is when you're supposed to, out of the corner of your eye. Yeah. It's meant to be like a little bit unsettling and scary, so that's really effective.
Oh, it definitely is, and it is. Yeah. It really is.
And I think it's worth pointing out that as a setup as well, there's a lot of shots, like panoramic shots of the outdoors, showing I think how isolated Casey's house is, and to try and emphasize that. She's not protected in this big mansion-esque type house.
Oh, hell no.
There's a big world over there, So yeah. And immediately we get into the hit themes with the whole, I think it's from the first phone call, the whole, do you like scary movies? I'm getting ready to watch one with popcorn and, references to Halloween, and she starts playing with the knives in the kitchen.
What's your favourite slasher movie? And, who's, like, one of the questions is, who's the killer in Friday the 13th? And, all right, he doesn't specify which one, but then it's Jason, like, wrong, it's Mrs. Voorhees. Spoiler alert for those who haven't seen Friday the 13th, but if you watch Scream not knowing the genre, then don't start off the horror genre with Scream, because it kind of does cover a lot of films. So have some sort of idea of what you like and then go and do Scream. Like, know a little bit about the genre and then watch this, I would recommend.
Oh, 100%, because it comments on every kind of trope and idea of the genre. So you get a lot more out of it if you are familiar with horror movies, definitely. So there's a funny kind of story that I have, or a couple actually, about this scene. But the first one is during the phone conversation when they get talking about what's my scary movie, can you guess? And she says Nightmare on Elm Street, and the voice on the phone replies, I like that movie, it was scary. And Drew Barrymore's character says, yeah, the first one was, but the rest sucked. Apparently that was a bone of contention between the writer and director, because Wes Craven said it made him sound incredibly pompous as the man who kind of wrote and directed the first movie. And the only reason the line stayed in there is because the film's writer said, no, Wes, she's also talking about New Nightmare when she says all the others sucked. So he was like, all right, fair enough. She's getting just
I get that.
Then, so I kind of like that. But I also like that Drew Barrymore apparently herself campaigned to be the first kill. She was originally courted for the role of Sydney.
Sign me up. I want to die. Sign me up.
Yeah, well, she was responsible for the whole idea that it would be a big shock, because she was the big name, and it was kind of, the idea was if she died early on, anything could happen. Again, spoilers if you haven't seen Scream, don't listen to this first. But,
oh, hell no.
So, no. That was the kind of shock factor, was unbelievable, and they deliberately marketed the film with her name kind of front and center. Because
when I've googled the film, like when I watched it a year ago, like I didn't hardly remember none of the details until like last week. But when I googled, like she's all over the posters, like you say, she is kind of the poster child. But then to be honest, like she's only in the first scene, and then she isn't in it at all.
Exactly.
But the way that she was marketed.
It was deliberate so that you would get the shock of like, wow, we thought this was a Drew Barrymore movie and she's gone 15 minutes in or whatever it is. Not even that, you know. But,
this is Game of Thrones in the 90s. All the characters you love are going to die. Don't get attached, folks. Anything can happen.
That far. Unless you're a fan of Drew Barrymore or the Fonz, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I like that. And I do have a story about kind of the director motivation that was given to Drew Barrymore during the scene for to kind of get her to the right place and stuff, which I find quite fascinating. So apologies if you find it boring, but apparently Drew Barrymore was she's like a huge animal lover, and she was reading a story in one of the local papers while filming about some guy who would like set fire to his dogs or something, or some puppies, and she was really disturbed by it. And Wes Craven sort of could see as she was conveying this story to him, she couldn't do it without being emotional, just describing the story. So Wes kind of clocked this, and apparently whenever she was like having trouble getting to that sort of sad or disturbed place, he would just go, Drew, lighting the lighter, and then she would remember that kind of story about the dogs, and that would really upset her at that level. So not that she was like, she wasn't averse to it. It was kind of like, yeah, get me there, whatever any means. But I just find it as one of those interesting things as like actors' motivations, you know, that
I mean, that's gonna stick with me. I mean, when I'll watch that again. Just that's trivia.
Yeah, but it's just a good performance watching Drew Barrymore again, because I just rewatched this like today, and watching a performance in those opening scenes, it's so good, and it really does seem like she's genuinely she's disturbed terrified by it all and stuff. And
I forget I'm watching a movie. That's how realistic it is. I forget I'm watching a film. Like it could have been a found footage thing. Like
if it wasn't for all of the kind of references to pop culture and stuff, but that's
other than that, no.
But yeah, in terms of like the little directing touches as well, I love that the popcorn is used as like a signifier of tension, because the more it kind of bulbously blows up, and it's about to pop, is the more that it's getting closer to her finding out the guy's
I didn't really think about that until you've just pointed it, but yeah, the popcorn is kind of used. I never. Good point. I didn't think about
it. Starts off with her sort of shaking it, thinking that the caller's like hitting on her and stuff, and then the camera just keeps flicking back to it as it's like I said, it's kind of puffing up more and more and more, and then by the time
the tension's increasing,
on fire,
so, okay.
Yeah, so it's really cool, and I like that. Craven uses like crash zooms and music changes and whipping around and stuff, and this is all used to signify like changes in attitude as soon as the killer stops being.
Yeah, there's quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit. Quite a bit of change.
And again, as we mentioned, in terms of like, if you've seen horror movies, you'll appreciate a lot more when it comments on it. But this is the first time it does it when she says, "Who's there?" And the guy on the phone's like, "Never say who's there. It's a death wish. Don't you watch these movies? You may as well come out here to investigate strange noises." It's just like, this is the first time that I think movies had been that level of self-aware that they were playing with these ideas, and it's really good. As I said, there's obviously, as we've said, reference to Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and that question about Jason Voorhees not turning up until the sequel. Which, if that killer was ringing me, I would go, "Oh, are we not counting the dream sequence at the end of the first movie then?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Technically, he wasn't it, but yeah, no, you're totally right.
Yeah. One thing I didn't realize until I was kind of doing research within the last week or two that never occurred to me, even though it should have, is the kind of ultimate question before the guy attacks us to Casey is like, which door am I behind? I'm behind one, the other one could lead to safety. And I was like, it didn't occur to me that there's two of them. She would have died either way, because they could be.
Well, exactly. She was screwed.
So I was like,
by the time you'd go to one, she was in the other one. Yeah.
Exactly.
Stupid.
But, yeah, I do love the little, again, in terms of tension, the fact that we get glimpses of the robes of the kind of killer running around behind her. And then we see that her parents' car is just so like agonizingly close. And just the iconic nature of like she looks in the window and the head wearing the mask just turns around and reflects on her, and it's so good, isn't it? It's just such a good touch. But
spine chilling.
It really is. It's very good. But in terms of like truly horrifying and disturbing, the fact that her parents are like listening to her over the phone, and she
on the phone,
she can't,
because her vocal cords have kind of been
that's
they've kind of been cut out, isn't it? It's just what a horrible way to die.
she's like screaming for help, and all that comes out is like, oh, it's like, oh, the tragedy of it. We just, yeah. Just to change the mood for a second, back to a more nerdy one. The parents, the parents of obviously Casey discover, they realize what's happening when they hear her kind of death rattle, I guess, over the phone. And her dad says to her mum, grab your stuff, drive to the Mackenzies, which apparently is a reference to Halloween. So that's what's said in that movie. Like, go to the Mackenzies' house, it'll be safe there.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
I didn't know that either. Again, I just looked it up and was like, oh, cool. That's a cool little touch.
That's hey, the more you know. Yeah, okay. I know. I didn't look into that as a reference, but I did kind of think the Mackenzies. Like, who are they in this film? But then, they can come up again. So
it doesn't seem like the most iconic line. Like I know.
No.
I recognize it in Shaun of the Dead when they say like, "We're coming to get you, Barbara," and I'm like, "Yeah, Night of the Living Dead." I know.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. But the Mackenzies, remember the Mackenzies? I've been like, who are they?
Remember the Mackenzies from Halloween, that family that got mentioned and never seen in all of the sequels? There you go. One thing I did want to quickly say as well before we get into the main bulk of the film is that I love that this film is unique because it's a whodunit, and I think that goes kind of uncredited for part of the reason I think of its success, because it doesn't show you the killer. Not that a lot of films did, but you still knew it was Michael Myers even if you didn't see under the mask. Totally. Yeah. And it starts out even with that immediately, because it was apparently Drew Barrymore, her idea, her ad lib, to reach up and take the mask off so she could see who the killer was, even though the audience doesn't. And I think that's such a good touch. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but then, I was going to ask a question that would have spoiled the whole film, so I'll keep the question to myself. Never mind.
No, go for it.
That full Connor. No. Okay, us two, knowing that who the killers are, because we've both seen this, who do you personally think it is? Of course, you can't just address it right now, as we've only just started this. Yeah, if you could imagine which.
Well, I think that I did kind of try.
That's why I couldn't address it.
I've watched this a few times, and it has been said that's what gives it the rewatch value, is that you can watch and try to figure out who is in the costume in various scenes and stuff.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like it was Stu that was in the costume that actually stabbed her, because he is the one that was said to have dated her for like 2 minutes and stuff.
Yes,
so right. It's him that was doing the killing, but it was probably Billy on the phone, is the way that I see it.
A team up thing. Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah.
Because then, I mean, Billy does arrive at Sydney's house not long after it. And he's perfectly kind of clean and not and unaffected, but you even see later on that he drops the phone out of his pocket. So I think it's him making the phone calls most of the time. Yeah. So,
sus, very sus.
Yeah, but as I said, if you get into the franchise, I do definitely think it was Billy that sparked everything by doing the first killing a year before the film or whatever. But
absolutely. No, not yet.
The film straight into Nev Campbell on the most 90s looking computer, as we didn't know that we're in 1996.
Nev Campbell. Yeah, I mean, it definitely. Saying this from a modern perspective, a younger viewer that I am, it definitely shows his age. I mean, it's not a negative, but it's just something that I have observed. Like, this film is definitely in its like time capsule 90s, like you say, very 90s. It is its era.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
because of the kind of the fast pace of technology and stuff moving these days. There's things that wouldn't work if you were to have this movie set now, that the more recent ones do even comment on, because I mean, even in Scream 2, when they're watching the movie and the Jada Pinkett character says, "Oh, just hang up and star 69 is that?" And it's like, yeah, exactly. We've got, and apparently in real world terms, use of caller ID went up by like hundreds of % after the film, because people were so kind of like, "Oh, I'm not getting caught out by this serial killer calling me." And yeah, it's just one of those funny things where technology has developed to a point where watching it now almost seems quaint, and you're like, why didn't they all have
Why
mobile?
Did you not think of this? What's a landline? Like, what is
exactly?
A landline?
Yeah, I do find it ironic that the first kind of supposed it's a jump scare, but it's not. Have we tricked you? Is Billy, who is ultimately revealed as one of the killers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh,
so it kind of winds up as a double bluff, because it's like, you were scared, but it was only Billy. But you should have been.
No, but also in that scene as well, when because the dad knocks on her door, and it's all like, I thought I heard a scream, and she's like, I'm going away for the trip till Sunday, look after yourself, blah, blah, blah. And she says I'll be on the phone, blah, 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 blah. But he's underneath the bed and he grabs like a little rabbit doll and he does a voiceover. That's kind of a foreshadow, isn't it? Because of what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
And I
But
thought that was genius.
they're setting Billy up, I think, not just as one of the potential red herrings, but he looks so much like Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street, and the whole climbing into her window is a reference to both that and to Dawson's Creek again, which is kind of
Dawson's Creek is the conspiracy. God, it's
he
the
was
inspiration behind the screen.
He was always walking in through Katie Holmes's kind of upstairs window and stuff. So yeah, but yeah, you mentioned the dad going away, and again, that's one of the main red herrings that's set up throughout the movie is that it might be her dad doing the killings, and it is kind of convenient that he's. Oh, I'm going away, so I'm not going to be around. And
I'm definitely not going to be on a murder spree.
Exactly. And there's a scene later on in the police station where they identify that the costume is like it's at every five and dime. It's just a regular costume that's sold, and the costume's name is Father Death, which is deliberately named to bring the audience her father in mind. Even though the character is called Ghostface by the other characters and stuff, that's what the costume's officially called. And it's just one of those subliminal things that you would like, Father Death, eh? So,
I didn't even notice that tonight, but all right.
Yeah, that was one of the things I think my media studies teacher taught me, because he was going through all the red herrings and stuff, and I was like, that's genius, because even if you didn't realize it subliminally, you're probably thinking, Father Death, So,
Death.
Anyway, slightly nerdy spot, which is blatantly obvious, but if I don't say it, somebody might comment in the comments. Billy Loomis, yes, his surname is named after the Donald Pleasance character in Halloween.
Wait, who? What? No, wait, is it his grandson? Are they crossing over? Wait, is Scream part of Halloween? What's going on?
Well, given that they watch Halloween within the movie, I'm guessing not, but it's a sly little reference. But again, it's a bit of a cheeky reference in the soundtrack when it starts playing the slowed down version of Don't Fear the Reaper over Billy and Sydney, which is kind of like, I get it, because he is the Reaper, So.
Yeah.
And this scene in Sydney's bedroom, I have to say, for some reason, it's the only scene that I can't take seriously, because it's the scene that they do in Scary Movie that has become embedded as the official version in my head. So I just keep expecting him to say, I was watching The Exorcist and it reminded me of you, and her to reply, if this is about the time that my head span round and I spewed out green slime, it was my first frat party, Billy.
see, I've not watched Scary Movie because I know its reputation, but I know that scene, I know that quote, so I kind of want to watch it now.
I do actually think the first Scary Movie is pretty good, but mainly because it only parodies, for the most part, Scream, and it kind of hits it scene by scene. Whereas in the sequels, it got stupid, and it was like, now we're parodying like not even horror movies just for the sake of it, and it got ridiculous. As we cut, by the way, from this scene into the camera crews and everything outside of the school, did you spot the cameo by Linda Blair as one of the news reporters?
No, I did spot another cameo later on, which we will mention when we get to that. But no, I did not mention Linda Blair. No.
Yeah, she's there. She's in the background of the first scene as it pans over before it hits Gail Weathers. And then she's seen really clearly later on when she kind of accosts Sydney and she's like, were you attacked last night with something about a costume? And
okay. That rings a bell. But like at that particular bit of the movie, like, no, I don't remember Linda Blair. But okay.
Yeah, well, that's her anyway, Linda Blair from The Exorcist, obviously the young girl at the time. So again, nice little horror bit of
reference,
self-reference
101.
Exactly. I love that there is kind of a world in this movie and a backstory that we get in drips and drabs. Like, it's first hinted at here why when Tatum says, "Oh, they say that the murder of Casey and her boyfriend is the worst crime in years, the worst than." Well, anyway, it's bad. So it's like, something else has happened, and what are they referring to? And obviously we get drips and drabs about it. Her mother was killed, and Sydney is the one who put away the guy with her evidence, and Gail Weathers was reporting on it and stuff. But it's so well done and well handled. It's not an exposition dump, and it's not shown to you in like a big flashback.
No. It's not, let's get all this character's backstory in one movie, because who knows, we're not getting a sequel, so we have to force everything down in this 1-2 hour movie, That would be every movie nowadays. It would be legit. Let's cram everything into this movie, hoping that we get a number 2. But
Yeah,
not to say
I
that
mean-
this was going to get number 2 at the time, but
No, but I mean,
Anyway.
it does give you that backstory. It's just not all at once because it gradually
not all in
reveals
your
it,
face.
so,
Yeah, not all in your
as you
face.
say, you can imagine a movie nowadays would be like, it's the worst crime since, and then you would cut into Sydney's face, and then it would be like a half-hour flashback of 1 year
That's
ago.
what I mean. Yeah, you think, Jesus Christ. Yeah, you think, get on with it, love. Get on
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, so as we go to the school, we realise the principal of the school is Henry Winkler. Hey!
Hey.
He apparently chose not to go uncredited for the role, so as not to draw attention from the slightly younger cast. But I mean, come on, it's him. There's no disguising the fact. Even to the point where in the later scene, where spoiler alert, he gets killed, he has the Fonz's leather jacket in the closet when he looks in there, and he even does that like slide your hand through your hair move of the Fonz into the mirror. I was like, well, they knew what they were doing with this, didn't they? So, yeah. Probably a reference that's going over most of our audience's heads, but I remember Happy Days. Damn it.
Me included. Me included.
You must know who the Fonzie is from Happy Days, surely.
No, well, back back in 1996, Happy Days, like horror films were the prime in the 90s. Happy Days is a bit misleading.
Happy Days was a great sitcom. It was the 70s pretending to be the 50s, but never mind.
No, sorry, put my hands up. I didn't know that one.
Fair enough. Look it up, you young whippersnappers. The Fonz, he's a cultural icon, damn it. He's where the phrase "jump the shark" comes from. Anyway. So yeah, we meet like all the characters and Dewey and whatnot, and the sheriff of the town, Sheriff Burke, is the same actor who played a cop in Nightmare on Elm Street, apparently. So,
is it? Yeah. Okay.
So
I've only ever seen the first Elm Street. I've not seen all.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, I haven't seen the rest.
Yeah. I'm only referring to the first one here because obviously I would suspect he was hired because he obviously knows the director of this movie, given that they're the same person.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, so there was an interview with Wes Craven where he says in his mind it's the same character, and he was so sort of scarred by the events of Elm Street that he moved to the small town of Woodsboro and got promoted to sheriff, and then look what happened to him after all that.
Well, big mistake.
Yeah, that's some bad luck that guy has had right there.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah. I do love the scene of them kind of all at the fountain when they're spouting kind of pop culture stuff, but I think this is where you get kind of the biggest reveal of who the writer of this is, because teenagers don't really talk like that outside of TV and films, do they? It's not like whip smart dialogue.
No, I mean, I was -2, so I would have no idea how people sounded like at all, but let's get into
we were never that clever or that kind of fitting, shall we say, everything. But yeah, I do like that. Again, because it's a whodunit, Randy kind of puts the blame on Stu and is right, but you don't know that right away.
Yes. No, of course not. No.
But yeah, he does the same with Billy later on, but he even admits himself he's also a prime suspect, and if you're watching this for the first time as an audience member, he does act very weird, and you're kind of like, ooh.
Rand, that's the thing, all of them genuinely, and I think it maintains most of it for the rest of the series, but like everyone truly is a suspect, in all of the films. Like, I can't trust, especially the first time around, I can't trust a single person. I can't trust a person.
I think they become increasingly aware that people are now looking for who the killer might be, and like I said, it doesn't get enough credit as a murder mystery. I think these films as well. So kudos to it for that. I think. Anyway, as I said, we hit Sydney's house, and it's basically the same kind of shots that I used that were for Casey's house, which is designed to deliberately unsettle you. It's showing you that it's isolated and there's these big woods outside, and she's there all alone, and. It does that. I kind of do like this, even though it's really cheap. It does that thing where she goes to a door and then the music kind of like starts to increase and does a sting when she closes it, as if there's going to be something there, and then there's not.
Yeah. God, no. But the thing is that for me, that would be 10 times worse in the big screen in the cinema back in '96, or even if it was in the modern cinema now. I'd be ready to like shit myself and then be like, oh, there's nothing there.
Yeah, the first time you're watching it, you really, especially if you're like,
I'm like,
for example,
God.
For example, my sister's really finicky and she can't handle the tension of the kind of misleads before the main kills. Yeah, I think things kind of happen really quickly here. We get the TV giving us the exposition of Maureen Prescott was killed a year ago, and we get obviously the picture of her on TV and compare it to the photograph of Sydney with her to reveal that it's her mother. Which again, very good.
Nice. Effective.
I like that Sydney is she's not immediately terrified because she just thinks that it's one of her like movie savvy friends on the phone. She assumes it's Randy.
Exactly.
Does call her. And Tatum has just called her and started talking about like, I'm renting this movie where you can see Tom Cruise's penis.
Yeah, all the right moves. Like, I'll come round in a bit, like 7 or whatever.
Obviously, I do love that Sydney's never portrayed as like the stereotypical dumb, just lucky final girl because she she calls his bluff. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, because I don't know. Again, I don't know if it was at that point in 1996, but like you say, as a protagonist, she is like strong, fierce. She's kick-ass, and she isn't dumb. Like I know these characters are written to be sort of aware of other horror films, as the whole film is a meta commentary about the horror genre at that point, and you know the franchise is today. But is she like the first real example of like strong female protagonist, would you say, at that point? Or?
I would argue that it's a tradition that goes back to something they reference here, which is Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween. But even then, she's kind of strong enough and capable enough to defend herself, but she's never that level of self-aware that Sydney is, which is because she's in this movie. So, like I said, she would never... You could never imagine anybody in a film before this being like, oh, you're outside, are you? No. I'm going to call your bluff and come out. And what am I doing now? And she starts like picking her nose and, what am I doing?
Can you see me?
I also love that on a rewatch, which I didn't realize the first time I saw it, but I have every time since. It was that kind of bravado that kind of screwed her because it's obvious that it's when she goes out that the killer sneaks in through the door.
Exactly. He's like,
It's like she was so in there and locked and there was no way they could have got in. And then she's like, well, I'm calling your bluff and coming out to the porch and looking around and staying there.
Oh, ouch. Am I? Thank you very much.
Exactly. And then obviously it's a quality jump scare though when she goes back to the house and then the killer is just in the closet behind her and jumps out. It's quality, but
It's her fault. Her calls.
Exactly. And again, if you weren't sure, this was 1996 when she starts to use the dial-up internet to call 911.
Oh, yeah, I was kind of like, hang on, what's this?
Yeah, that's something kids today just would not understand. Like, what's she doing?
Why is she on her laptop? Why is she on Skype calling like the virtual assistant to call the police? I was like, what's going on?
I know the most basic like war game style. Would you like to play a game type text? You know, nowadays they'd be like, just video chat them. What's going on? You know. As I mentioned earlier, we get the kind of Billy drops the cell phone, and that leads them to be suspicious of him, and it's another double bluff where it's like, oh, he's innocent, but then in the end he isn't, and keeps you guessing. But again, do you
think in that moment, if he hadn't dropped the phone, do you think he would have got away with it? Do you think he could have potentially...
I think it was deliberate because I think they knew that nobody realized that there were two killers. In my mind, they're kind of effing with Sydney and with the other. So it's like, as I said, I've kind of looked through and tried to guess like who could have been the killer here, and I would assume. In this instance, it was again because it was too quick from when the killer was chasing her to when Billy jumps in the window. So again, I assume it was Billy on the phone and it was Stu in the costume.
Yeah, and it was Stu in the costume.
But yeah, I also think he deliberately dropped the phone to set up like, oh, we're going to get her because then she's bound to accuse me and it's going to make her look like crap because then you'll call her when I'm in jail, which will reveal it's not me. And
oh, Jesus. Back in 96, you could get us with a full... this plan through and through. And they're only like 16-year-old teenage kids or college kids or whatever they are. Jesus. They've watched a lot of horror movies.
Exactly. But that's part of the clever write the film by the writer, though, to kind of think a few steps ahead like that and to do these, cross and double cross and is it a mislead and then it's not and stuff. And I love that. I think it does. It really adds a lot to the movie. So, and again, loads of Dutch angles when people are getting attacked all the time. I've made this note of thousands, but this is just a little couple of. It's at this point that the film, I think, gets a bit of levity because it's been said a few times that when it was trying to get a rating, Wes Craven was sick of all the cuts that he was being told to make and stuff, and then was like, look, you've got to look at the film as a comedy rather than straight horror because it's as much that at times and that you're like, this, we can't tell you what to cut here. It's just too intense a scene. And he was like, you've got to look at it in context and think it's within, there is some levity in between this and some comedy and some knowingness, I guess. And a couple of times here that I noticed this was, I do love that Dewey and Tatum being siblings is a genius idea. And the fact that she just has no respect for him whatsoever.
Whoa.
he's like a freaking deputy.
Rose McGowan, isn't it? Rose McGowan's the sister, which I didn't know until this time, till tonight. I was like, really?
What?
The cast is so known. It's like, what?
Love Rose McGowan in this, but I think she's great. And apparently she had a great time filming it, which is good to know, but she's so good in this as well.
I mean, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
I was gutted when the first time I watched this movie when she got killed, because I was like, she's the only really noble, decent, good character in the film.
Morally good, yeah.
Yeah, because she's looking out for Sydney and she kind of has her back against Gail, and the only person she's ever really harsh to is her brother, but it's that sibling rivalry kind of thing. But related to that, I do like that Dewey's trying to be like the serious police officer, and he's like, we need to get out of here, Sydney. And Tatum's like, she's staying with us. And then Dewey's response of, does Mom know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it brings it back down to the fact that they are siblings, and he is trying to be this macho, police protector, and it's like, oh shit, I need my mum's permission. It's like, does she know?
Exactly. He shrinks right back into that sort of younger sort of. He's the older brother, but the kind of like younger brother character. I guess.
Kid.
So,
Exactly. He's a weird combination of both. Yeah.
And in terms of great jokes, and again, this is apparently an ad lib, and it's one that I haven't picked up on until relatively recently. But when Gail, who by the way, total bitch, but when she goes,
in this movie, absolutely,
she goes, "Oh Jesus, get the camera!" And the cameraman, again, ad libbed, apparently responds, "My name's not Jesus."
That's funny, knowing it's an ad lib.
Yeah, exactly. There's a few moments like that were supposedly ad lib, but I'm not going to get over them all. But yeah, you'd be surprised if you look up on the internet all the lines that weren't supposed to be there that were ad libbed by the cast. It's really good.
Okay.
In terms of what we were saying about Gail Weathers, she's deliberately a real bitch, and
written.
That was the reason why Courtney Cox wanted to play her, because at this point she was most well known, obviously, for Friends, and
absolutely,
it was kind of like, I don't want to be typecast as this good girl, kind of quirky type character that I am in Friends, so I want to play a real bitch.
The opposite.
Like, and so she did get to. I mean, kind of arguably becomes a bit more heroic as the franchise goes on, but here she's not. She's very much that stone cold, opportunistic kind of
unlikable.
character.
Unlikable. Yeah. I weren't a fan of her in this. I was really like, oh. I hope you die in number 2, because I don't remember it.
I think Tatum speaks for the audience as well when she's like, "Oh, it was so great, you punched her," and it was like, "Bam, bitch goes down," and you're thinking the same thing, aren't you? Really? So, again, we get a little bit more exposition by TV here rather than having it all at once, and that's when you see the Cotton Weary, and you get like, you wouldn't think Liev Schreiber is a pretty big name movie star nowadays.
Freaking Ray Donovan, Ray Donovan Sabretooth, superheroes exist in horror. I'm like, what? Oh, sorry, superhero villains.
But it's so weird to me that because he even has like an expanded role in a couple of the sequels, but he appears here on TV for about 3 seconds. Like blink and you'll miss his appearance, you know?
Yeah, I know. Like that's the thing. If I went into Scream 2 and 3, because I watched 1 and 2 a year ago. If I went into number 3, and with his opening scene, I would have looked at him and been like, hang on, Sabretooth in Scream? When was this? I missed this. I definitely missed this.
He's got to have been chuffed that he's got to have basically been a background extra that they hired for that scene. And then when it came to the sequels, they were like, yeah, you can come back and play the role. We
like you. Yeah, we like you. Yes, come back.
So yeah, I love it. And more and more exposition and talking between Sydney and Gail about you or my mother, and you wrote the book about this, and Sydney, you framed this guy, and now you're not so sure and stuff, which again keeps the whodunit aspect alive in the audience's mind, I think, without it being bogging down the film, because it has to have a little bit of room to breathe between the kills.
Absolutely, yeah.
Speaking of which, the idea of the costumed sort of kids just running around in the school and everyone kind of just looking at it like, whoa, it's just a bit of fun and whatever else. But then the scene when she runs into Billy and she's still a bit nervous, and it's so clever because you would never know this was exposition until you know it is. But when he responds with like, "Oh, get over your mother's death. When my mom left my dad, I got over it," and it's like, that seems really insensitive. And why would you say that? And then
why would you mention it?
Yeah. So that was like a key clue that you would completely have missed at the time and just thought, oh, what an insensitive guy. He just wants to get laid or whatever. And then you find out, nope.
Oh, what a jerk. What a guy. Yeah. What a guy.
Exactly. But yeah, in terms of the misleads and stuff, I think at this point it's trying to set up that the Fonz, who you don't know about, the principal is the killer, because he's like branding scissors on them. The guys that
I know. oh no, what is it? It's an injustice that like I expel you. Like you should be hung in the field, and like, he literally shoves scissors in their face. He's very what?
I should gut you and hang you from the nearest.
Yeah, gut you and hang you. Yeah,
we can expose you for the heartless, desensitized little shits that you are. Which it's like, wow, that's pretty harsh. Considering 2 scenes ago, he was like, "Remember, your principal loves you. I just want you to be safe." And
yeah, like what on earth? What a misfire!
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's obviously setting up like maybe he could be the killer. He certainly seems like he's not quite all there. So yeah, I like that. And likewise, there was a scene when Sydney goes into the bathroom just after this, which apparently was nearly cut from the film because Wes Craven didn't like it. I think it was Wes, but one of the parties didn't like it, and the other one was like, no, it's key because it gives you backstory about Sydney, how the rest of the school sees her, and kind of what her mother's reputation is.
Yeah,
she won't admit.
Yeah.
But I also think it's notable, and again, credit to my old media studies teacher for this one, that it also sets up the kind of red herring misleads, because it's when the girls have left the bathroom and you realize the actual killer's in there. You see them step down from the toilet and you see the shoes that they're wearing are these kind of black docker type shoes.
Yeah.
It deliberately shows you in a later scene that the sheriff is wearing those exact shoes when he's putting out like a cigarette with his boot. So,
yeah, I know. To be honest, tonight I was looking for those shoes again, and yeah, I thought I saw them in the police station. Maybe like not on the sheriff, but I thought they were just in the background, like as a prop. But okay, they're actually on the sheriff. So that was another, like you say, clever. Yeah. Oh, okay.
It does
I was actually looking for those shoes tonight.
It's a much later scene, but it's when he's like talking to Dewey, and Dewey's like, "Oh, I thought you quit."
Yeah.
I did, but it's too much for me and all the rest of it. And he said the camera deliberately, it shows you he's just stamping out the cigarette with the poop, but it lingers on it for maybe a second too long, and you're like,
hang on. Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. I like that when Gail meets Dewey, they're immediately flirting with each other, even though it seems like she's completely disingenuous. But there's just there's some kind of weird, and I know that it's because these two were dating and then eventually married and whatever in real life. There's some kind of weird chemistry there, regardless, isn't there?
Yeah.
I think so. Anyway,
no. They will get it. Well, not get it on later in the movie. They have a moment later on, and from the get go, it was like, right, these two. When I found out they dated and married, I was like, oh, I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
movie tied it all.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, so
probably.
Yeah. So then obviously we get the idea that because Sydney's been attacked and everything, class has been suspended, and they're all like, yeah, whatever you did, it's great. We're gonna have a party at Stu's house, and you'll come along, and blah blah blah. There's a 9 p.m. curfew, and again, it's another quick reference to her father being the primary suspect, just to keep it in the audience's mind, just that little bit, which again I like.
Yeah.
Yes. And yeah, the next scene is Principal Himbry, which again is a scene that didn't exist. It was a scene that was added because I think it was Bob Weinstein or someone like that, who was one of the producers, had said there hasn't been a kill in the movie as it was, because obviously the last one would have been way back. The actual kill would have been Casey in the start, wouldn't it?
Yes, at the beginning, right? Yeah.
There's like a couple of attacks on Sydney, and then there hasn't been a kill until the party. So they were like, we need to add some kind of scene that has a kill.
We need that R rating, damn it. We need that 18 rating.
Well, it was more like the audience's retention wouldn't be great and whatever. But so that was when they wrote in this scene with the principal being killed. Which apparently Kevin Williamson was really happy with, because it also solved the problem later that he needed to have a reason why everybody would have left the party. So the final
exactly,
can be just the main guys. And obviously you have that scene where they get the phone call and it's like, oh, the principal's body's hung up. And then
Principal Humphrey's in the football field. Let's go before it hangs down. Woo!
Yeah, exactly. So that gets everyone out of your party as well. So it was like it was double the fun for that. But yeah, I do like that, as I said. There's a couple of references to the Fonz in this scene, if you do happen to know who he is. And the best little Easter egg in all of the Scream films, when he busts out of his office and just goes, oh, little shits. And then you get Fred, the janitor, standing there just going, what did you call me? And
I'm sorry, this is the cameo I was on about, because it's none other than freaking Wes Craven, isn't it?
It's Wes Craven in the actual original Fred Krueger outfit, which is why he's called
Fred
the
yes. Yeah. Yes, I reckon it is Friday 30. Oh, Friday 30. Fucking hell, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, and that is actually you're absolutely right. That's Wes Craven himself in that scene. Yeah, so I love that little Easter egg again. That emphasizes that this film is like, the more you know about horror, the more you'll get out of it. So yeah.
Yes.
But speaking of Wes Craven, I love the way that he plays with kind of reflections and mirrors and stuff during the scene, so that you're a little bit off guard where Himbri's going to get attacked from. And the best shot in the movie for me, which apparently was a nightmare to actually get Henry Winkler, as it took hours to frame properly, but is the scene where the mask is reflected in his eye at the very end.
Right, yeah, I can imagine.
That shot is so cool and so iconic, but yeah, it didn't occur to me that like that would have been a real pain in the ass to get, especially like you wouldn't. These are the days before it would be just, we'll just CGI it in or whatever. They would have actually tried to get it in camera. So yeah, that must have been a nightmare.
God.
Speaking of pop culture type stuff, obviously we get Tatum talking about how, you know, I believe the stories about your mum because you could only hear this Richard Gere gerbil story so many times before you believe it's true. Again, talking of little Easter eggs and stuff, though, I do love when Sydney's talking about how, maybe I'm cursed and whatever else. And then Tatum's response is, you're starting to sound like some Wes Carpenter flick, which is like deliberately getting wrong the mashup of Wes Craven and John Carpenter.
Yeah, like Jesus Christ. Yeah, Wes Carpenter.
Very on the nose, especially again, since Wes Craven is directing this movie, which, yeah, the irony. But you do get a glimpse of the killer as we cut between scenes, and then you get Frankenstein on the TV, and we've cut to the video store, and again, so many references, like what's the werewolf movie with E.T.'s mom in it?
The Howling.
Yeah, which has always bugged me, because if E.T. exists as a film in this universe, E.T. stars Drew Barrymore, which would surely bring attention to the fact that Drew Barrymore looks exactly like Casey from the start of the movie.
Yeah. Oh, Kevin and Wes didn't think about that one, but
there's a few things like that, because there's a moment later on where you see the pile of, I think it's videos back then on Stu's kind of VHS. And one of the videos on there is Clerks, which is fine within itself until you get to Scream 3 and Jay and Silent Bob exist in this universe.
Of course, yeah, they're canon. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of a, what were they doing?
A little bit weird there, but yeah. But yeah, talking of the pop culture stuff, I love that Randy is kind of the savvy one, and he's talking about, it's Prom Night Revisited. Why is Billy in the horror section? That's in poor taste. And we get the exposition of Randy kind of clearly fancies Sydney, but has never went for it. And what, she's saving herself for you? But again, I do love that.
Do you think I got a chance?
If you listen, yeah, exactly. No, I don't. But if you listen carefully, he does describe things that actually happen, because it's like, what about the father? And he's like, he's probably dead. His body's going to pop up in the last reel somewhere. And I was like, and it does. It's
oh
true.
My God. He predicted his own sodding movie.
Exactly, yeah. But that's exactly what he does throughout. And then as he talks about, like you said, it's a simple formula. Everybody's a suspect. And he even says the dad's a red herring. It's Billy, which again, exactly right.
This guy is Wikipedia. He knows his crap.
Exactly. But then the movie and the kind of actual killers try to throw you off with like, maybe it was you in your movie freak mind. And it's like, I admit I'd be the prime suspect. And it's the millennium. Motives are incidental.
But that motives incidental thing, that's kind of plays into the actual, like, all right, when we actually get to the reveal of the killers, like, we know their actual motives, but it is kind of, other than their reasoning, it is kind of a, it's not it, we'll just do it because it's fun. Like, they are crazy fucks and they just like killing people.
Certainly in the case of Stu, but apparently that's deliberate, because they kind of discuss it in the film, and it's a lot of what was actually going on in the writer's head, which is that he said he wanted there to be no motivation, because in a way it's scarier and it's kind of more sinister. But he also liked the kind of backstory he'd created about her mother and everything, and wanted that motivation. So that's, I think, when he was like, well, I've got two killers, we'll just do both. So Billy has this epic motivation. And then when Stu is eventually pressed for like, well, why did you do this? The best answer he could give is peer pressure. So that's just basically no reason, you're just crazy.
Well, I mean, but what makes it more terrifying for me, it's Shaggy. Like, it's Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, and he's a killer. Like,
it wasn't at the time.
Oh no, but I know his face as Shaggy. Like, before I even, like, the first time I screamed, I literally looked at his face and thought, hang on, if your hair was a bit longer, where's your pet dog Scoob? Like, I literally looked at him, it's Scooby-Doo. Where's Shaggy? Where's Velma? Where's the mystery?
This ghost face. Who was it? It was Billy the whole time. And I would have gotten away with it too.
Whoever those meddling kids. Yeah, no, legit. It was like, Shaggy's a killer in this. Like, what's going on?
Whereas I did it the opposite way around. I saw Scream and then watched Scooby-Doo in 2002.
I went, oh my God, Ghostface is helping them?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, bless. But yeah, so as I said, you get the closing montage here, and I wanted to give a shout out to the soundtrack, both the soundtrack itself and the score, which are both really good, because the song that plays here is Red Right Hand, which is pretty famous. But I've mentioned there's like Don't Fear the Reaper, there's Republica's Drop Dead Gorgeous, pretty good needle drops. And the score is by a first time, I can't remember the chap's name now and I feel awful, but yeah, first time
Marco Beltrami.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right. And he says he kind of scored the movie by looking at it not as a horror film, but almost like a Western. And you can kind of get that.
Yeah, I've got those vibes. I definitely got those vibes hearing them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of atmosphere. And even the song Sydney's Lament, when it's kind of like there's a female voice in the background, like moaning, I guess.
Yeah.
It's used for Sydney throughout the entire franchise. And it's like, that's so genius and so cool, you know? But so yeah, credit to the soundtrack for also being great in this movie. And again, I've got to mention the pop culture awareness of who's going to play you in the movie, Sydney, Meg Ryan, and her response.
Yeah,
I think it'll be Tori Spelling.
Tori Spelling, and then later on, that actually does happen in the Stab movies.
In Scream 2, you watch Stab, and Stab, yes, Sydney is played by Tori Spelling.
It's that's
the fact that they got her to come in and do that is just genius, based off a little sort of throwaway line. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Whether, like you say, whether that was just a pure throwaway, and then when I actually did Scream 2 in real life, they're like, "Oh, hang on, remember we said that line? Let's actually get her to do it." Or they actually thought it out when they said it at the time.
No, I don't think they did. I think it was literally like it was a throwaway gag, and then they were like,
"Let's just say a name," and they were like, "Can we actually do it? Yeah, can we do it?"
And they did. So yeah, great. I'll have to mention this because I'd never noticed it before until maybe this time around, and I've seen this film like dozens of times. That when they're in the shop, they close the kind of case on one of the freezers, and the killer's reflected in their costume.
Really?
I never noticed that before. Yeah,
I didn't notice no.
It's not playing the scene for tension or anything. It's just playing it like we're just getting party supplies and the whole place is closing and everything's safe. And then, like,
you're talking about when Tatum's getting the beers at the party?
No, this is like at the shop before the party. She's just Tatum and Sydney, and they're pushing like a trolley or a cart, whatever, around the shop, grabbing stuff.
Yes, that scene. The killer's reflect. Is it? I don't know. Actually, did I notice that or not?
I really didn't. The first multiple times I watched this, I didn't, because the scene's not played as if you should be looking for something. And it's
I was just watching it. Yeah,
it's so quick just before the scene transitions that I think it's easy to miss as well. But I was like,
you see him move. Like, you actually see the killer walk past, but you can reflect. Oh, okay. Oh, well. That kind of there's a definite trivia.
If you had pause handy, there's a definite like full on shot of him in the case. But again, it doesn't register first time. I don't think so.
No,
cool. It keeps you on your toes because it's almost a subliminal flash, isn't it? So yeah. So then we get to the last act, which is the party at Stu's, which this entire thing is all just it's one big act, and it's like some 40 odd minutes of the movie.
Act 3, baby.
Yeah. Which, oh boy. But just to quickly go through a few things, obviously, you get a few fake jump scares when it turns out to be Dewey or Gale or whatever. And mention of like Jamie Lee Curtis is only in all of these films because she's the scream queen. And when do you see her tits? You never see her tits till she goes legit. So
trading places. Yeah, tits and legits. Yeah, that line's amazing.
Exactly. So, and one other line I noticed that I have to mention because it's completely unintentional but hilarious in retrospect is that when Stu or somebody tells Tatum, go and grab some beers from the fridge for us. And she's like, what am I, the beer witch? And I was like, remembering that her most famous role a couple of years after this was in Charmed, that's some pretty hilarious foreshadowing.
Oh, okay. Blimey, I didn't notice that, but okay, that's cool.
It's not intentional. I mean, it couldn't possibly be. She wasn't, but it's just looking back, it's like, why would you say be a witch? And then your most famous role was playing a witch. You know what I mean? So, yeah. The scene with Tatum in the garage, I hate that she gets killed, but that scene itself is great. Again, it's Dutch angles everywhere. It's so disturbing. And again, she thinks it's Randy and she's not. She's standing up for herself and not giving any of this kind of cliched, I'm terrified, run away kind of thing. And one of my favorite lines in the movie is like, you want me to play this? Please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
Yeah, I want to be in the sequel. That's legit. All my notes. So my quotes are basically from the third act because I think that's where the third act is my favorite bit of the film, and that's where everything because everything goes down. But like, I think the one-liners are good, the kills are good. Like everything happens in the third act. All my
It really
quotes are from
cements the meta narrative of the film as well. There's so many references, isn't there? Again, something I didn't notice until, because it's such a cheesy joke, maybe, but until a few times after watching it was, oh, what film is this? I spit on your garage. It was pretty dumb of Tatum to try and escape through the pet door retrospectively.
I mean, yeah, sure. It's like, oh, little door. I can surely fit through that. It's like,
it was never going to end well. No.
Girls.
But yeah, horrible, gruesome thing. And I love that when Billy shows up, I think it's Randy that says, "What's Leatherface doing here?" And then there's a few again pop culture reference, which again was apparently ad-libbed. But when Randy's like, "Oh, I wanted to have a shot with her, I could have asked her out and whatnot," and Stu says, "As if," and then Randy's responsive, "Oh, really, Alicia?" Because it's like a clueless reference.
yeah, I got that one. Yep, that was
yeah. Very nice. I love this kind of narrative conceit that they planted a camera, but it's on a 30-second delay because they get so much cool tension out of that.
They do. They really do.
Yeah.
Especially when that 30 seconds goes into play and like they're all watching the camera and you see the kids go, like when the kids are like, "Woo, principal's in the football field, let's go, woo!" Like, where'd you go? Go watch the movie. And you see the kids go out, but then they're watching the camera and they go, the camera guy and Gail are getting confused. And
it's great.
Like, Courtney being Gail being a bitch. Her iconic line from this though is, "When I say hurry, please interpret that as move your fat tub of larders now."
That's just mean.
I mean,
she's so mean to Kenny, and then he winds up dead, and she's just like, "I'm sorry, but get off my windshield."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Harsh, but yeah. First, before we get to
Kenny,
any
I'm so sorry, but get off my fucking windshield.
Exactly. But before we get to any of that, we get the scene, obviously, with Sydney and Billy in the bedroom, talking about, you know, it's I'm scared to turn out like my mom. I want to admit the truth, and you know, her saying to Billy, "Life isn't a movie," and him responding, "It's one great big movie, but you can pick your genre." And her responsive, "Why can't I be a Meg Ryan movie or even a good porno?"
Yeah, or a good porno,
which is the best, like, only a teenager written by an adult way of indicating that you're ready for having sex. Really, nobody would ever say that, but what the heck?
No,
no. But, you cut back to them watching Halloween, and this is where you get probably the key scene in the movie when Randy describes how there's certain rules you need to obey to survive a horror movie.
And I wrote these down. Yeah.
Did you? Oh, do you want to go for it? Yeah, go for it.
So you can never, ever, ever have sex. Which true. You can never drink or do drugs. An extension of rule number 1. And in number 3, never, ever, under any circumstances, say, "I'll be right back." "Oh, guess what, Randy? I'll be right back."
Because you won't be back. I'm going to get another beer. You want one? Yeah. I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
I love that because Stu says that as a kind of deliberate reference. And then 2 seconds later, Gail says it to Kenny. And by this point, as the audience member, you're like,
oh my God, yeah, she did.
Yeah. So I love the way it references these things deliberately to put them in your head and then kind of subverts them in a couple of places as well. It's really clever, I think, anyway. So, but yeah, I do love the reference to, like, only virgins escape the killer, and the fact that the film plays with that by showing that Sydney is no longer a virgin. And so that...
Yeah. Oh, no, here comes the compulsory tit shot, or whatever it is, the sensory tit shot. The bra comes off, yeah.
Then all this stuff happens that we've mentioned, Himbry, and they all leave and stuff, and Gail and Dewey get knocked over into the kind of bushes by the cars, into the most cliche kind of, like, we've fallen on top of each other, we are going to kiss now.
So what's going to happen now? Yeah.
And that's when they discover Sydney's dad's car, which, you know, propels the narrative towards the end. And I do think it's nice post-coitally that Sydney's starting to wise up a little bit. Even at this point, she doesn't, like, immediately click to him. She's like, "Well, who was your one phone call?" You know, you could, which again, this bugs me in films because that's not true. You're not entitled to one phone call when you're arrested. You're entitled to a lawyer, which can be a phone call.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah.
It's one of those film kind of tropes that's become like accepted as fact, even though it isn't, which bugs the crap out of me. But never mind. But yeah, it is kind of cool that she's like, "Oh, be clever," and what have you. And it's, again, really clever from a screenwriting process that he's like, "What do I have to do to convince you?" And then, like, the killer bumps in behind and stabs and seemingly kills him. And I was like, well, that'll convince her, won't it?
Yeah.
But again,
well, that's the thing. I had like, all right, I know we said who the killers are, but I at that moment was kind of like, yeah, you are the killer, Billy. Shut the fuck up. Oh, what? You're actually dead? I was like, I got fooled. I was like, wow, you were somehow telling the truth.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what the film, it knows what it's doing, and it does that so well. It's
It
really
did.
clever.
At that moment, it really did. I was like, oh fuck, have I been wrong the whole time?
Yeah, but it does that a few times in a few of the movies. It's great. But, yeah. So then obviously we quickly get Sydney falling onto a very convenient sort of tarpaulin on the bottom there.
Yeah,
From the full height of the window. She finds Tatum's body and runs away to find kind of Gail and Dewey, I think. But then we get this scene, which I never realized quite how meta this is until, again, when I was reading up for the podcast here. But when Randy's talking to himself and he's like, oh, Jamie, look behind you. Look behind you, Jamie.
Oh, yeah.
Behind you.
Yeah, like, of course. Yeah, that iconic scene.
Yeah, I get why it's like meta in the regard that he should look behind him, the character. But it never occurred to me that he's talking to himself as well on the level that the actor's called Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, Jesus.
I never picked up on that like extra level that when he's shouting like, look behind you, Jamie. Turn around, Jamie. And he's like deliberately talking to himself. I was like, oh,
that's weird. Oh,
that's a new layer of
that's meta meets meta.
Exactly, yeah. I think this is the time when they use the delay the most cleverly, because Sydney goes to the van with to find Kenny and whatnot, and they watch Randy seemingly get killed, but then the killer gets spooked and he goes to outside the van, sees the open door, and then immediately remembers like, oh, there's a 30-second delay. So the killer's already there, which is like, oh, that's genius, you know?
Genius.
Yeah. I love it. And then we have a few things about, you know, the usual stuff. Dewey has a knife in his back and has he been killed, and chasing her to a car and she tries to lock it and they open it.
Which becomes a trope of the franchise. Like, not to, like, there is a lot of these, oh shit, like people been stabbed. Oh no, someone got shot. Oh no, these characters are dead. And, you know, it's kind of a like, not to jump ahead or anything, but especially with the killers, it's like, oh, remember to shoot them in the head. They always have that last, like, hurrah, like, they always come back, which happens in pretty much all of them. Like, it always does tend to be.
Completely. But no, with regard to the Dewey thing, I find it quite fascinating that apparently he was supposed to be dead, and you can kind of tell that because when they kick Gail like onto him when they grab the gun later, it's quite clear he's not breathing or anything. But
he isn't moving. No. He's chesting anything. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was either Wes Craven or the writer who was like, we liked the character and decided if we were going to have a sequel, we wanted him in it. So they quickly added the scene of him getting taken into the ambulance, and he's clearly alive at the very end.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a very last minute insert. So that's, I think, where this idea started of like people getting really severely injured and yet they're fine, because it wasn't supposed to happen, you know. But,
exactly.
Anyway. Yeah. Obviously, this great reveal of like Stu and Randy both appealing to Sydney of, oh, it was him, not me, and her just,
it was him. Just give me the gun, Sid. Just give me the down. Yeah, fuck you both. Yeah, great.
And then the stupidity, again, looking back retrospectively, of like Billy crawling down the stairs and falling, and like, oh, I thought you were dead, and I'll just give me the gun, it's going to be fine. And then realizing how stupid she is as he just turns around and he lets in.
Right, I got it.
He lets in Randy first, and Randy's like, you got to help me, Stu. He's gone crazy. And what does Billy respond?
We all go a little mad sometimes. Bang!
Anthony Perkins, psycho.
Yeah, Anthony Perkins, psycho. Yeah.
Yeah, and then talks about how they're using corn syrup for blood. It's completely fake.
Corn syrup, same stuff they use in Carrie. Same stuff they use in Carrie.
And this is your big reveals of like Stu now has the voice changer, so there's two of them and who they are, and how they used the movies to frame Cotton, and it was so easy. And we've talked already about, you know.
The voice. We haven't mentioned the voice of the Ghostface. Roger L. Jackson, still going strong, still voicing all of the films, isn't it? All the films.
Yeah, and again, this was, I'm pleased you mentioned that, because this was another thing that I found in my research, which was he was never necessarily intended to be the voice. He was like a placeholder. They hired him because they thought he was cool and everything, but it was like, we'd probably hire somebody to record over this later on, because the actresses didn't actually meet him, so they were actually talking to him on the phone. So as to kind of give you the correct response of like nervousness and not knowing this guy. But I think it was, again, Wes Craven on watching like dailies and stuff was like, this voice is perfect. It's the right level of seemingly intelligent, but also that dark, like evil undercurrent. And I'm just going to keep that voice. So,
totally. It definitely works. I can't see
brilliant.
any other voice as Ghostface. It's
iconic for a reason, just like a lot of the stuff in the movie. And the fact that he still is the voice of the killer every time, even though it's it's meant to be a voice changer, but it is that actor every time. But like he's other than the main three characters, he's like the only thing that's present in every one of these movies. So
exactly somehow.
Exactly, yeah. But obviously we mentioned already, you're not a virgin anymore. It's all a scary movie, and it's a Scream, baby.
It's a Scream, baby.
That's the Family Guy moment of Peter Griffin, like he said the name of the thing.
Or like Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the screen, like the meme going, that's the one, that's it, that's it. That's the line.
Exactly,
that's
exactly.
it.
And they do that sort of, we forgive it, but that cliche thing of like, we're now going to reveal our entire plan to you to frame your dad and do all this and that. But I do love when Sydney kind of responds with, you've seen one too many movies, and they say movies don't create psychos, they just make psychos more creative. That's so true as well.
It is, especially at that point, like, because later on, like, part of the issue as to why Scream 3 is kind of the way it was, like, all right, the film, not just Scream, but other things have inspired acts of real life violence, and Scream 3 kind of suffered because of certain shootings and deeds at the time, and violence was a big red flag at the time, and that's kind of why they heavily toned down the violence of Scream 3, and that's kind of why it ended up the way it did. And it suffers the most from it.
Exactly.
But that line totally, like, movies make psychos more creative. It's like, it is true. Like, even it happens a lot more than we think. It's happening right now, but we aren't just going to know about it. But obviously, back in 1996, and it was big, and it was a big red flag.
It is, but at the same time, I do recognize that the writing and stuff is kind of saying it's not the movie's fault. They aren't the trigger.
No.
They are just kind of like, there's obviously something wrong in these people's heads to start with, and the movies give them, a way to latch onto that and to actually express it. But they were always going to be kind of crazy murderers anyway, So yeah. So I anyway, that's a whole other debate, I guess. But from here we get the cool the idea of like looking for the gun, and it turns out Gail's there with it, and it's like, here's an ending for you. The cub reporter comes and saves the day.
Saves the day.
And Sydney,
you should have turned the safety off.
Should have turned the safety off, exactly. But again, it's such a Scooby-Doo run around of like, then they turn away and Sydney and her dad are gone, and then she calls them and she's called the police. Again, I think it might be an ad lib, but I'm not sure. But it always makes me feel truly like sorry for Stu at the scene when she's on the phone, like, did you really call the cops? Mom and Dad are gonna be so bad at me.
I think that's the funniest line of the whole movie.
I find it devastating the way he plays it. I'm genuinely feeling bad for him. I'm like, But at this point, he's like been stabbed by Billy to fake the kind of idea that they want to escape and make the sequel, because these days you gotta have a sequel, baby.
Have a sequel, baby.
But so as I said, we get all of these kind of thematic ideas of misleads and Sydney wearing the costume and stabbing Billy with an umbrella, but then Stu runs in. And Stu ends up killed by the media he so loved by getting a TV smashed onto his head, which I love. And then, it's cool again that off screen, kind of as a surprise, sort of neat punch the air moment, Gail kind of leaping up and shooting Billy with quick. Guess I remember the safety that time, you bastard. Again, as you've mentioned, careful. Randy's saying, careful. This is the part where the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare, and he just opens his eyes as she shoots him in the head. And just says, not in my movie. And then
but then Randy, I don't know if he says. Sorry, I'm like, speaking of lines, I don't know if Randy says it in this or like early on, but he's like, I never thought I'd be so happy to be a virgin. It's earlier on when he kind of he clambers in and he's kind of covered in blood, and Sydney's like, I thought you were dead, and he says, I probably should be. I never thought I'd be so happy to be a virgin. Exactly. So again, mention of the kind of tropes and ideas, but again, the film has to give us one last jump scare, but it turns out it's just Sydney's dad falling from the closet. It's like, way to play the heartstring, fellas.
And again, the film just ends fairly abruptly at this point because it's taking so long. But we have the insert that I mentioned of Dewey having survived and Gail reporting. Which again sums up the entire thing perfectly with her report, where she just says it was like the plot of some scary movie. It all began with a scream over 911, which again, like DiCaprio meme. Yeah, we pan into the kind of like the big wide world that's out there, and there is a subliminal flash of the killer that is so quick that you would never register it, really.
Well, yeah, it's just a Ghostface face. It's just a ching, and it's just like, yeah, all right, see you number 2.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, all right, see you again. We're back.
Exactly, but
you didn't kill me. I'm still out there.
You can never
like
kill
not to spoil the rest of the franchise. Like that's true.
So yeah, we'll jump on now because it's been a fair while, and we'll go into our conclusions for the film. And
okay, sure, yeah.
We'll start with you as the guest. So if you could give me a quick paragraph conclusion and then a score out of 5.
Paragraph conclusion, what as like a summary?
Just summary if you'd like, or just what your thoughts are generally overall on the film, or.
Yeah, I just think like not to get all philosophical, but especially for its time, like this really did reinvent the genre and made it fresh and engaging, and like added a whole new layer to, again, not a dying genre, because like Wes Craven's New Nightmare like kind of was the prototype for the meta formula, or I don't know if you knew any other movies that around that time, but then Scream was really the one that kind of went, oh, like movies making fun of movies. Like we need.
I would
to kind
say
of,
New
like,
Nightmare was the outlier because the rest of it was very much like that it was slasher movie number 9. This killer takes
because Craven didn't direct all of the Nightmare on Elm Street. He do the first one and the last one, didn't he?
He did the first one in New Nightmare, but I think he also co-wrote and produced a couple of others, maybe, but I'm not sure.
Right, right. Because without me knowing like the horror genre back in the 90s, because I'm not that old, and Craven's like filmography, I would have said New Nightmare was kind of like the 0.5 basis for then what would turn into 100%.
Scream. Yeah, I mean, New Nightmare was literally 2 years before as well. It was 94 and Scream was 96. So
yes. Yeah. But then obviously out there, which one did well, which one has spawned a franchise, and which one's still going strong today? Because I'm sorry, Nightmare, it is a nightmare trying to get a new movie out. So
but I think that's part and parcel of what you were saying, is that people wanted a new twist on the slasher thing because it had become like direct-to-video sequels and the same old formulas, and
stale
was clever enough to reference that and subvert it, I think. So anyway, sorry to interrupt your conclusion.
No, I don't know. I'd say like it has been like a long, I say this week, not the whole summary of the franchise, but like it has been a long week. But I've determined that basically this is my favorite like horror franchise. Like to me, from what I've seen, there's nothing like it. These movies aren't going to leave my head anytime soon. Not just because I've watched it tonight, but like these movies are now going to stay with me. And
they do, yeah.
Like Ghostface, like, is iconic, and the fact that it's a normal guy, like, all right, Ghostface is terrifying because you don't know who it is, and you are sitting there going, "Ooh, who is it?" But when he's actually with the knife, he is a normal human guy. He gets slammed in the door, like he falls over, like he's a normal guy or girl in the suits, and he isn't this superpower immortal being that's pure evil, or he isn't some fucking Friday the 13th curse that can just keep coming back to life. Like he is a normal guy or girl, and I think that part strikes fear in it, and I think that's the part that resonates with me. And all right, it takes the mick out of films, and I love that layer for it too because I'm into films, so I love that.
Definitely,
But I don't know. I just think Scream for me right now or forever will be like that franchise because it does offer entertaining, genuine scares, like a realistic enough plot. It all helps as well because the characters are aware of what they're in. Like, all right, it's because of good script writing and everything. But like, I don't know, Scream. Having watched them all, like, I am very appreciative of Scream. I just think, Scream is the best at the minute for me. Scream is up there.
Yeah. So what would your score out of 5 be then?
Fuck it, a 5. A 5.
Awesome. Fair enough.
Yeah.
And I probably should have said earlier, because I haven't mentioned it, that you have seen the newer Scream movie that's just come out. Which
yes.
Frustratingly, they decided to call just Scream, which I hate, but never mind.
I know. Well, the only way you can differentiate, I can't even if I can say that word, legit, the only way you can tell the difference is if you put the year in the brackets, like you have in the title of this, Scream 1996 and then Scream 2022.
I haven't seen the new Scream, you have, so which is why we've avoided like spoilers or anything.
No.
Just super quickly, what were your spoiler-free thoughts then on it?
Okay, what can I say about Scream 5? Okay, whether you're a new listener to the Scream franchise and whether you had the whole horror franchise genre ruined for you, then I would say I'm sorry, but then again, you need to do some horror research. But I'd say if you needed to rewatch any of the Screams, just watch this first one, and
Right.
that's all I'll say on that. But no, what can I say about Scream 5? This one thing I will notice, right? So Wes Craven, for all 4 of his Scream movies that he did, because sadly he passed away back in 2015, the directors of the new film, made Ready or Not, back in 2019 or 18, and it was just a really phenomenal movie. But Wes had this comedic undertone. Like, yeah, all right, we've described a really meta movie that, you know, describes horror really well, genuine scares and blah, 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 blah. But all I'll say about this new one is there's barely, I'm not saying there isn't funny scenes, especially with the legacy characters, but I felt like this new take on the franchise without Craven's involvement, which is a sad thing as it is, because I think even Kevin Richardson Williamson, I can't really remember his name, I think he's a producer, so I don't think he's even wrote the new one. No, but what I was going to say about the new one is I feel like the real horror aspect and suspense is on show. Like Craven, all right, I can't speak other than Scream because I haven't seen anything else other than Scream and First Nightmare on Elm Street. But like that had a comedic undertone the whole time. Like it's entertaining, you're in for a ride, and it's funny. Like this new movie is nothing but suspense and terror and genuine fear. Okay. I've not seen any horror, like whether it's in the cinema or not, where I've genuinely felt not just down to the jump scares or anything, or 4DX amplifying the atmosphere, but like literally the whole movie is suspense and nothing else. And yeah, I just think this new Scream is really well done. And I can't obviously touch the plot or anything, but as soon as you see it, let me know. And I want to honestly know your thoughts. And same for you, the audience. Yes, I don't know. I had a blast.
By the time this comes out, I mean, Scream will have been out. Scream 2022 will have been out for almost a full week. So feel free to like
five cream.
Exactly, 5 cream. So feel free to leave thoughts in the comments, maybe just mark them as spoilers or whatever if you're listening to this. And I'm fascinated to see other people's reactions because everything I've seen has been really positive. And even
critics have loved this so far. Like every review I've seen from critics and a quick summary, like critics have like really given it positive scores so far. So it's a good sign. It's a good sign.
I'm also following a lot of the legacy characters and the characters who are no longer in the films but have been, and every one of those has like raved about it and said that even Wes would have been kind of proud and would have liked the film. So
damn right. Without being too preachy, I think if he was like either still alive but involved in some capacity or just if he was somehow involved, I think he would look back on this and think, damn, like I would say basically better than 3 and 4 at least.
Okay,
It's in the good, easy. Go and see it. Cool. Scream 2022 is real. Go and see it.
That's cool. So I'll drag us back from that distraction anyway, because I've completely stepped on my own kind of conclusion and score here, but we got yours, so that's cool. Again, I just read mine off the thing because I've got it written, so apologies if it sounds a bit robotic, but my basic sort of conclusion was that it's an iconic movie, a literal touchstone of cinema history. It's not the first meta self-aware film, but it's the most effective, thorough, and in my opinion, the best. It uses knowledge of horror and the horror conventions that it belongs to in order to comment on the tropes and elevates it beyond the formulaic slashers that horror devolved into. I think it is whip-smart writing, masterful direction from a proven pro, and great performances from a young cast, combined with an effective whodunit mystery to create a new version of the formula that was so popular that it spawned many imitators itself and sparked a teen slasher renaissance, which just emphasizes its importance. It captures the imagination. It's memorable, clever, exceptionally well-crafted, and it's a Scream, baby. I like this scary movie, and I also give it 5 stars out of 5. So,
I love that.
That makes the average pretty easy to work out. So the full podcast score for Scream 1996 is pretty obviously 5 stars out of 5.
Minus 5. It's terrible movie. Terrible movie. Minus 5.
Don't start saying that now. Yeah. But so all that remains then is to give the audience response section, which I'll jump into now. I kind of put out social media messages just saying, a couple of questions. And the first question was, what was your thoughts on Scream, the 1996 original? And there were a few responses. Andre, son of Moog, love that username, by the way, says, I totally loved it. They'll look at how Hollywood shapes our survival instincts based on horror tropes. Also, Jamie Kennedy talking to the screen for Jamie Lee while watching Halloween. To look behind her when Jamie himself had a killer behind. Nice. I also love how Wes Craven got flack for omitting people of colour, all while keeping up with that horror trend, only to flip it on its head in part 2 and dedicating the whole opening scene to the very discussion of the exclusion of POC in the horror genre. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's fair enough. At Kelly's Encanter, The Last Centurion says, I really enjoyed it. I wasn't particularly keen on the sequels, but the first one felt incredibly fresh and gave, for a time, new life to a tired formula. I watched it again recently, and despite the 90s... Go ahead.
It felt incredibly flesh. He felt the flesh, did you? He felt the flesh.
That was a Freudian, wasn't it? Yeah, fair enough.
That's what I heard.
So yeah, The Last Centurion says, I watched it again recently, and despite the 90s-ness of it all, it still holds up well, in my opinion. Yeah, we've talked about a lot of the 90s stuff, haven't we? So, the last thing was just from a friend of mine at AL Park Tucker, who said that she hasn't seen the movies, to which I kind of sent her, you can't sit with us, gif. And then she responded with just in big exclamation caps, my husband has seen it, and I quote, Wes Craven mastermind, meta, wise beyond its years, a new way of doing horror, a fresh take on up-and-coming I Am God crowd, cast Drew, Rose, Nev, and Courtney, just OMG Scream Queens, staying power way beyond 2 seconds. So, yeah. Oh, no, there are a few more, so bear with me. At Liz Who Fan says, I love how it turned a slasher movie storyline into a really good mystery, which I've kind of gone over a lot, so... And at Starwolf Oakley says, I had not seen a lot of the movies they were referencing. I still enjoyed it, though. It was a coming-of-age story disguised as a horror movie. Okay.
Yeah, actually, that's a good lens. Yeah, that is a good lens. Yeah.
Fair enough. So the second question I asked, just for a little bit of extra kind of interest, was, have you seen the whole kind of franchise, and what are your thoughts on the Scream movies overall, meaning the first 4, because obviously a lot of people wouldn't have seen the new one yet. JIS4 Junglist, J Red, says, I like them all, but the first one holds a special place in my heart. I saw it as a teen in the theatre when it first came out, and there had never been anything like it before. Okay. Johnny, thanks you for being a friend. I think that's at... I forget who that is, sorry. But yeah, I am not a huge horror person, but I love this franchise. 3 was a bit of a disappointment, I admit, but I liked 4, need to watch it again soon. My favorite is 2, love it. At a furry friend responded to that. Yes to that, even though number 3 gave me some good laughs with Doppelganger Gale. And for me, it's a shared first place with number 2 and 4. And then Johnny again responded with, I didn't hate 3, just was a bit disappointed after 2 being so brilliant. At Kelly's Encanter, The Last Centurion chimes in again and says, first one, great. Second one onwards, meh. The law of diminishing returns, to which I said I don't fully agree, but fair enough. And they replied, not a problem. In fairness, I haven't seen them since my initial viewing. My opinion may change on a rewatch. So there we go. I think I have just a couple more. Yes, indeed. Yeah, so this is Andre, son of Moog, got into it again. A bit of a long thread this time, but he just said, for me, the first 2 were masterclass. 3 went off the rails a bit. 4, let's just say the train crashed in a fireball. 3 had way too much humor. I love Parker Posey, but she added too much camp. 4 made my eyes roll like bowling balls. As a whole, at this point, Sydney should really be like Rambo. It's like, okay, fair enough. And then when pressed, and I sort of said that I liked 4 quite a lot, and 3 was probably the weak point for me, he responded, I still enjoyed 4, but it didn't draw out that same amount of dread and whodunit mystery that the first 3 did. Okay, and then said, this is just a random kind of tangent, but I find it amusing. Fun fact, I was 16 when Scream 2 came out, and my cousins and I went to see it, all 3 of us, POCs. We were stoked that Jada was in the movie. My cousin whispered in my ear for the whole movie, why'd Jada have to die? Spoils the entire movie for that poor guy. So yeah, I just find that amusing. It didn't even occur to me that, like, looking at it through that lens, yeah, that's kind of annoying, isn't it? But yeah, so I think it's...
Well, no, that's the thing. I put on Scream 2 thinking, right, she is going to be in the movie. And then I was quite shocked when I found out, wait, she wasn't in it.
She's quite deliberately she's the Drew Barrymore of Scream 2, really, isn't she? Where it's like, big name, put her on the poster, kill her straight away.
God damn it.
So the only thing that remains then is, and this is completely meaningless in a way, but why the heck not? I also put out earlier today just a random poll. What's the best of the current Scream movies, the first 4? There were 14 votes. Scream 3 got no votes whatsoever. Scream 2 and Scream 2 and Scream 4 are both tied with 7% of the votes each. So naturally, this film that we've reviewed, Scream 1996, the runaway winner with 86% of the votes. So yeah, the internet, or at least 14 people in it, have spoken and declared this the best. Yeah, so
good job, people. Well done for agreeing with us.
Exactly. I'm with you though. I love the franchise as a whole. I think it's something kind of special. So. Yeah, excellent. So it just remains for me to say thank you for joining us if you've listened, and thank you to Conor for being my guest today. Conor.
Yeah, no worries.
It's been great. It was great having a fellow kind of Scream head to discuss these things with.
I mean, yeah, once we finally got connected and, technical issues aside, I promise this won't happen again next time. But no, let me know whatever we're reviewing next, whether it's another scary horror or a light-hearted kiddie Scooby-Doo adventure film with Matthew Lillard. Let me know and I'll gladly come back.
Well, as I said, we're not really in a full series as such, but I'm doing the odd kind of... the odd episode every now and then, so it's just
so we're a Jodie Whittaker Doctor Who special. We're a Doctor Who special, essentially.
Yes, exactly. Yes, indeed.
Until the next series.
But you mentioned yourself earlier that you are one half of Pasty Sheep, the awesome kind of podcast channel. So do you want to shout out where the people can find you?
Mainly on YouTube, but if you follow Pasty Sheep on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or again, if you want to email us at nerdbiblecontact@gmail.com, I'll say it again slower: nerdbiblecontact, all one word, @gmail.com. But again, mainly on YouTube across those platforms at Pasty Sheep. Again, films, TVs, do what this gentleman does, but more not like whereas Michael does them individually, like this video is all Scream, we kind of blurb news gossip of the week and just kind of mesh it together somehow. But if you guys somehow like our content, then feel free to give us a like, comment, and subscribe, and cheap plug done. I'm done.
I definitely recommend it if you're a fan of like the kind of, you don't see a lot of it these days, but the kind of entertainment almost morning show where it hits a few topics and discusses a few sort of pop culture things. It's really good, and highly recommend to go and check that out, the Pasty Sheep or the Nerd Bible podcast on YouTube or anywhere where you can find it. Is there anywhere else, by the way? Is it on like audio or anything?
Well, no, we've been saying forever to get it on Spotify and iTunes, but it is only YouTube at the minute. But again, if you wanted to contact us on all the social medias, it's just Pasty Sheep on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Fair enough. That's awesome. Well, you can find me, as always, I'm at Iron Mike Wilson on Twitter. That's my personal page. I'm just my name, Mike Wilson, most of the places. The podcast is at podcast_screen. Or you can look up Silver Screen Podcast on Spotify and find the episodes as audio podcasts there. Shout out as well to the Hit or Miss Big Screen Podcast, where a lot of my previous work still is up there, and to Will for giving me my start in all this kind of movie business and stuff. And he doesn't really need the viewers as such, but if you're interested, I would definitely go and check out that podcast. I think Conor and George may have been on that recently-ish as well. So
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, we're getting.
Check it out. Yeah. What were you reviewing, by the way, on that? And I can't remember now.
It was Last Night in Soho.
Awesome. Very good movie. Awesome. Fair enough. So yeah, do check that out as well if you like. And I also have a video up. If you don't know, I also have a podcast channel dedicated entirely to Star Trek because I'm a nerd. And I put a video up there very recently, which is a new kind of idea for me, but it was my review of the Eagle Moss model of the Discovery A. So if you would like to go and check that out, it's only 25 minutes, and see if you have any interest, especially if you're thinking of buying the model or just wanted a kind of sneaky look at what it looks like. So yeah. Just one last time, thank you so much again, Conor, for joining me. This was really good. And
thank you.
Good luck and everything with the podcast. I hope it all goes well, and I'm hoping to be invited on soon.
Absolutely. And feelings mutual. Bring me back, bring George back, and we'll cover whatever the next episode special, Doctor Who related, Star Trek related. I'm a bit iffy. J.J. Abrams Star Trek, I know, original and everything else is like OG Star Trek is kind of beyond my head, in all honesty. But wherever we cover, just let me know. Give me a shout in advance.
Awesome. So yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed it. We keep an eye on our social medias, and there'll always be word there if there's anything upcoming, or you can usually tell because I will ask, "What are your thoughts on this movie?" Just before we do a review. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed this. We will see you soon, and in the epic words of Arnie, I'll be back.